Have you ever imagined a city, one that's so complex it has its own government, its own power grid, factories, and transportation systems, but it's so tiny that trillions of them fit inside you right this very second? Well, today, we're not touring some city you can find on a map. We're going microscopic to explore the incredible, bustling metropolis that is the biological cell.
So, let's just kick things off with a wild idea. What if you could actually build a city with all the bells and whistles, government, power, security, and then shrink it all down to be completely invisible to the naked eye? What would that even look like?
You might be surprised, but it would look almost exactly like a biological cell. And that's the big idea for our tour today. Thinking of the cell as this tiny, super intricate city, where every single little part has a crucial job to do. So, grab your microscopic tour bus keys, let's head to the center of power.
All right, our first district is the command and control center. Just like any real city, the cell needs two things to get started: a government to make all the decisions and a power grid to keep the lights on. These are, without a doubt, the most fundamental departments in the whole operation. And our tour begins right here at the Nucleus. This is the undisputed city hall of our little metropolis. It's a heavily fortified structure where all the big decisions get made, and maybe more importantly, where the city's most important documents are kept under lock and key.
Just like a city hall, the Nucleus holds the master plan for everything. That's the DNA, and it uses those plans to direct the whole show. We're talking growth, energy use, even making new cells. It is truly the central government running this entire city.
And what is this master plan? Well, it's DNA, of course. The best way to think about it is like the city's original foundational blueprints. It's this massive library of instructions that has every single tiny detail needed to build, run, and maintain the entire city from the ground up.
But you can have the best blueprints in the world, right? They're pretty much useless without some energy to make them happen. Every city needs electricity. And for our cell city, all that power comes from hundreds of these tiny, tireless power plants, the mighty mitochondria. These things are the absolute workhorses of the cell. They take in nutrients, the city's fuel, and they convert it into pure, usable energy. And get this, cells that need a ton of power, like your muscle cells, can have thousands of these things packed inside. They're so unique, they even have their own DNA, totally separate from City Hall. So the energy they're pumping out is a special molecule called ATP. You can think of ATP as the city's official currency. It's the cash that fuels the entire cellular economy. Every single activity, from building new stuff to taking out the trash, has a price, and that price is paid in ATP.
Okay, so our city has its master plans and a steady supply of power. What's next on the agenda? We need to actually make stuff. So our tour is now headed to the industrial heart of the cell, the manufacturing district, where all those plans are finally turned into reality. And here it is! This huge, sprawling network is the Endoplasmic Reticulum, or just the ER for short. It's a real two-for-one deal. It's both the city's main factory floor and its internal highway system, responsible for building everything the city needs and then getting it where it needs to go.
Now, the ER isn't just one giant factory. It's got specialized departments. The part called the rough ER is covered with these tiny little workers called ribosomes, which makes it the main protein assembly line. Then you've got the smooth ER, which handles different jobs, like producing fats, and also running the city's detoxification center.
So how does this whole production line actually work? It's a super slick, three-step process. First, those original DNA blueprints can't ever leave the safety of the nucleus. So a messenger, a temporary copy called RNA, is sent out with the instructions. Second, the ribosome workers on the ER read that RNA message and build the proteins. And finally, all those newly made products are sent to the Golgi Apparatus. Think of it as the city's post office for final packaging, sorting, and shipping.
This whole beautifully coordinated dance has a name: protein synthesis. And you've got to understand, this is one of the most important manufacturing operations in the entire city. It's that magic moment where the abstract code from the blueprints gets turned into the actual tools and structures that make everything else happen.
All right, a city isn't just about big government buildings and factories. It needs the basics to survive, right? We need borders to control who comes in and out, sanitation crews to keep things clean, and warehouses to store supplies. This is the cell's critical infrastructure.
Every single city needs a border. And our cell city is no exception. Guarding the entire perimeter is the cell membrane. It's this flexible but really tough barrier that protects everything valuable inside.
But listen, this is not just some simple wall. It's more like an intelligent security checkpoint. The fancy term is selectively permeable, which basically means it acts like a super picky bouncer at a club. It carefully decides what nutrients are allowed in and what waste products get kicked out, making sure the city stays safe and perfectly supplied.
Okay, but what about all the garbage a busy city produces? That's where the lysosomes come into play. These are the city's sanitation crew and its high-tech recycling plant, all rolled into one.
Inside these little pods are super powerful enzymes that basically act like a biological incinerator. They dissolve anything the cell doesn't need anymore. We're talking old, broken down parts, garbage, and even dangerous invaders like bacteria. They are absolutely essential for keeping the city streets clean and running smoothly.
And where does a city like this store all its extra supplies? Well, for the cell, the main warehouse and water tower is a structure called the vacuole.
This organelle is pretty simple, but it's totally vital. It's basically a storage sack. It holds on to reserves of water, food, and even waste products until they're needed or can be thrown out. And this is especially cool in plant cells. Their vacuole is huge, and the water pressure inside it is actually what helps keep the whole plant standing upright.
And so, our tour starts to come to a close. As we zoom out, it becomes crystal clear that a cell isn't just a random bag of parts. It's a perfectly synchronized, highly efficient system. It's an absolute marvel of microscopic engineering. If there's one single thing you take away from our tour today, let it be this fundamental principle of biology. The cell's structure dictates its function. The shape and design of every part, every organelle, is perfectly suited for its specific job. The big, sprawling network of the ER is built for manufacturing, while the tiny, enzyme-filled lysosome is designed for demolition. It all comes down to that. Structure dictates function.
And that leaves us with one last, really crucial thought to chew on. We've seen how all these departments work together in perfect harmony. But what happens when one of them fails? What if you have a faulty power plant, or a broken-down recycling center, or a weak spot in the border security? That single point of failure? Well, that's often the very origin of disease. Understanding how the city works is the first most important step to understanding what happens when it breaks. Something to think about. Thanks for taking this tour of the cell city with me.